let's take a look at more about simple harmonic motion. So we saw last time that simple harmonic motion is simply a special type of oscillation where the acceleration is proportional to the negative of the displacement. Well, it turns out that with a little bit of calculus, you can take this proportion and turn it into an equation. And if you do that, you get something called the governing equation for simple harmonic motion. And the governing equation is this. The acceleration of the object is equal to the negative of the angular velocity squared times the displacement of the object from equilibrium. So you can see the information that was in that proportion is in this equation. It's just now we know the additional constant that turns it into an equation. Now, angular velocity, we've seen that before. We saw it in circular motion. And if you remember, back to that, in circular motion, we saw that the angular velocity is equal to 2 pi over the period. Now, we didn't see exactly that. In your data booklet, you get that 2 pi r over the period is equal to omega times r. So you cancel out the r's, and you get what I said. But the point is, the period and the angular velocity are very closely related. If you know one, you can get the other. And also, the frequency is very closely related to the period, right? If I know the frequency, well, frequency is the inverse of the period, so I can get the period. So, what we can do is we can combine all these three quantities, period, frequency, and angular velocity, into a single statement. And that's what's done in your data booklet. The period is equal to 1 over the frequency, okay? And also, the period is equal to 2 pi over the angular velocity. And now let's go back to the idea of phase, because we're going to look at something called the phase angle. When we talked about phase before, we talked about phase difference, things like that. But I'm going to draw an oscillation here. Here's displacement versus time. And if this is time, well, a full period is the time it takes to complete a cycle. So here's a period. Here's half a period. Here's fourth of a period. Here's 3/4 of a period. But if we think about this in terms of a phase angle, the idea here is that we're going to look at a complete cycle. And if it's a complete cycle, we're going to do a comparison to like a complete cycle in a circle. If it was going around a circle once, we would say that it went around 2 pi radians. Well, here we're going to say that if it completes one full cycle of oscillation, it also completes 2 pi radians. So a full period will correspond to what we're going to call a phase angle of 2 pi radians. And half a period would correspond to pi radians. 1/4 of a period would correspond to pi over 2 radians, and 3/4 of a period would correspond to 3 pi over 2 radians. It's a little bit odd, but it turns out that that's a pretty common practice. So let's go back to this idea of phase shifts and phase differences. Let's say I have two oscillations which are completely in phase, like this. So we would say that the phase difference is equal to 0. Now let's say we have two oscillations which are completely out of phase. Sometimes this is called antiphase. Then, well, we would have to shift one of the oscillations 1/2 of a period in order for them to overlap, in order for them to match, which means that they're out of phase, or they have a phase difference of half a period, or pi radians. And then let's say we had oscillations that looked like this. One looks like a sine and one looks like a cosine. Well, one would have to shift 1/4 of a period for them to match. So then the phase difference would be pi over 2 radians. And this comes up sometimes in a question like this. Let's say that we have a displacement graph and a velocity graph, and we want to know the phase difference between them. Well, if the displacement graph looks like this, a cosine, then the velocity graph would have to look like this, a negative sine. The phase difference between these, well, in order for them to match up, I'd have to shift one of the graphs 1/4 of a period. So the phase difference then, 1/4 of a period, that's pi over 2 radians. Phase difference is pi over 2 radians. Okay, let's look at a mass spring system in detail. So a mass spring system, when I say that, I mean something like this. Let's say we have a frictionless surface, a block, and a spring like that. Well, if we do that, this block is going to oscillate back and forth around its equilibrium position. Now, there's a restoring force. The restoring force is the force that's bringing it back towards equilibrium. And in this case, the restoring force is a spring force. It's the force from that spring. So we can write this. Fh is equal to negative kx. That's from way back when we looked at spring forces. This is Hooke's law. Now, in this situation, the spring force is the net force. It's the net force acting on the block. So we can use Newton's second law, right? Therefore, ma is equal to negative kx. And if we solve for the acceleration is equal to negative k over m times x, where here, of course, k is the spring constant of the spring and m is the mass of the block. Now, we also know for simple harmonic motion, the acceleration is equal to the negative of the angular velocity squared times the displacement. So if we compare these two equations, we can see that the angular velocity squared equals k over m. Or, go a step further, the angular velocity is equal to the square root of k over m. Now also, we have a relationship between angular velocity and period. The period is equal to 2 pi over the angular velocity. So, the period is equal to 2 pi over the square root of k over m. Or, rearranging it, the period is equal to 2 pi times the square root of m over k. So this is an expression that tells us the period of the motion for the mass spring system. If we know the mass of the block, whatever it is that's oscillating at the end of the spring, and the spring constant of the spring. Notice, this period then will change if we change the mass of the object, and it will change if we change the spring constant. But it doesn't change based on the amplitude of the motion. The period is the same if the motion has a tiny little amplitude or if it has a really big amplitude. Doesn't change based on amplitude, only based on mass and the spring constant. Now let's take a look at the simple pendulum. So when I say simple pendulum, all I mean is you have a ball at the end of a string and goes back and forth like this. So in this situation, let's say we'll call this L, the length of the string. We'll call this theta, that's the angle that the string makes with a vertical line. And if we think about the forces, well, the forces on a ball at the end of the string will be the tension force and the gravitational force. There is a restoring force here. And if we look at the forces, the restoring force is a component of the gravitational force. And if we draw a little triangle here, the force that's pushing this back towards equilibrium, that restoring force, is the gravitational force times the sine of theta. So, therefore, the net force on the pendulum is equal to the gravitational force times the sine of theta. Now here's where things might get a little uncomfortable. We're going to say that if theta is small, then the sine of theta is equal to x over L. And we're going to get that from this diagram over here. If you look, theta is here. It's the angle between the length of the string and a vertical line. And here's the length, okay, L. And here is the displacement. However, that's not exactly true, because the displacement from equilibrium is not horizontal. When the ball is at equilibrium, it's actually down a little bit. So really, the displacement from equilibrium is a little bit down. But if the angle is small, we can ignore that. If the angle is small, then the displacement is approximately horizontal. And if you don't like that, if that makes you very uncomfortable, and if you're a geometry teacher, you can imagine your geometry teacher just yelling at you about what you're doing right now. Well, this is a pretty common thing to do in physics. It's pretty common to make an approximation like this. So you might not like it right now, but try to get used to it. So, moving on. The net force then is equal to the gravitational force times the sine of theta, and we're going to replace sine of theta with x over L, which remember is only true, or is approximately true, when theta is small. And we're also going to add in a negative sign to this equation, and the reason why is because the net force is always in the opposite direction of the displacement from equilibrium. All right. Now we can replace net force with ma, we can replace Fg with mg, and if we do that, then we get that the acceleration is equal to the negative of g over L times x. And if we compare this to the governing equation, a is equal to negative omega squared times x, then we can get that the angular velocity squared is equal to g over L. And if we do a couple math tricks with the angular velocity and the period, we can see that the period of the simple pendulum is equal to 2 pi times the square root of L over g. And remember, that is only a good approximation as long as theta remains small.